Hello. So I was asked today how to build a mono light team with actually Balteon, who's actually not mono light, but this was a request that was made to me. So later on today, I'm going to be doing a stream, and if I don't have enough people, I'm just going to do it on Skype. It really depends how it works out. It's going to be around 8 p.m. EST. So the first thing is you got to know is that a light team, depending on the fact that you have the legends or not, is going to make a huge difference, because you're not going to be running the same formation at all. And when you start changing one of them, the chains are going to change, and you're going to want to change a lot of players altogether. So if you can, depending on your formation, yet again, one card has the most advantageous skill for a light team is a Latios. If you can throw her somewhere, and I really mean anywhere, if you want to throw her on the front line and give her a steel build, it's actually not even that bad for this one and only skill. Actually, no, I don't have it right here because she's not EE, but she has a skill who is going to allow her to increase the stats of all light players on the team. So this is something you're going to want whatever happens on your light team. So she's going to increase the max life and max attack power of light players. So when you're running a light team, she is considered the best buffer for the entire team. She has the same equivalent as an ace. So on top of it, decrease the inflicted damage on light attribute players is a huge ace that you could equip when running her. So she's a great ace. She has a great passive, and she has increased team life with a shot, increased attack power, crit damage. So I would really say that if you're running a Latios, you're going to want to increase the first, the third, and the fourth skill. No, I mean all the passives, just to throw her in the front line. She doesn't even need to be your primary striker. You just want her there as a buffer, and whenever she shoots, she's going to be healing the entire team. So it's going to be very powerful. Use her as an ace, and you're just going to see the survival rate of your entire team go up. So whenever you're running her, what's highly advised is to have something in the mid, who, especially now with the line, with the passer that have been debuffed, it's now more questionable. You have Scylla, whose skill, to be honest now, is not really interesting. I wouldn't advise her using her as much anymore. She healed herself. She does a bit of action bar, but especially if you're running the other ace, it's not worth throwing her in for that. So I would really say what you'd want to do is throw in a Milky Way, as she's going to be throwing in a very decent amount of speed, allowing you to shoot the most possible. She's right here with the Smile Maker, music start, and decreased damage and spirit regain. So that's very nice. But if you don't have her, you don't like her, and well, you also need to actually be very lucky. You have Black Ivy, who is season 2. So be aware your chances of owning her are actually very low. I own basically all light players, so I have all of them, but you're not going to have a high chance of getting her. So if you don't have her, I wouldn't advise setting her as your goal, but she does have what I consider one of the best line buffs. Again, it's limited to the first 15 minutes of the match, so you want to be careful. But she's going to reduce the action speed of enemies within the position by 30% and increase the inflicted damage. So it's basically similar to what Milky Way is going to do, except at the place of buffing, she's debuffing. So it's also very interesting, and she's going to increase the max hype and critical resist, accumulated with action. She's going to decrease the incoming damage, recover the ball with a steal, and she has an active heal. That also affects action bar, who's very interesting when you're running a Latios. So those are, in my eyes, the two interesting things you're going to throw in front line. Now again, if you decide you do not want to run a Latios, you could run either Milky or her and throw a Scylla, but again, I'm not advising it. Or you can throw a 4-player line, but since the light defense is very weak, I would highly advise that the backline is the 4-player line. Now, if we're going to look at light from a mid perspective, the one inconvenience of light is it has only 2 center mid really capable characters. One is Valkyrie Beth. Now her skills have been changed, so she's not even forced to be a center mid anymore, but she still excels at that role. If you do not have her, it is completely fine. There's a second one who's really not that bad. Not as much as a buff, I would say, but she's very strong. So I would throw in at the place a Sammy. She has 50% damage reduced. She's gonna heal with a pass. She has a few buffs. She's very interesting. She has some pretty good links. If you look at it, she has a link with Chitose. Her Nemesis link is okay. But her rival link is extremely popular in PvP as Princess Mary and will appear very often. And Nemesis, this sometimes, but I'm not giving any value to that one whatsoever. So that is what I would advise as your center mid. There are only 2 options. Do not look at any other players. They're basically just not worth it, as they're just gonna get destroyed. Now, on the sides, it really depends what you're going to be running in the back line. There is Hercule, but his problem is that he's in a Nemesis chain with Metatron, so he's actually going to be very weak. If you're running Latios and you're running some other buffs on the line, he will be very strong as his power comes from the amount of life he has, so you can still run him. It is not ideal, but he still sadly remains an option. There's Scorn. I'm not even going to advise him. In my eyes, he's pathetic. So when you look at a mid line, what you're really going to want to look at, what I personally liked in the light players was Nile. I would put her in the top mid left. So this is where I would stick her. She has super play and she has this very nice line buff who increases counterattack resistance and attack power from allies within the line. And for what I would put on the other side, I sadly don't own him, but I'm thinking maybe changing my backline and throwing him there is throwing yourself a Michael. So you throw the Michael, you throw the Sammy, and you throw the Anna. So that is a very decent line. He's going to be very nice with his increased attack, critical rate, reflex. And Anna with extra crit is very strong. Reflex is going to be for Sammy, and life is just going to help the line overall. And Sammy is going to be healing. So all 3 combined are a very decent line. And now if you want to go at a backline, who is what I would consider the biggest weakness of the light players. So first of all, whatever you're going to do when you're running a light team, just to traumatize the opposing team, you're going to want to run a Virgil. This is one of the players I've run since the day I've gotten him. I didn't even know how powerful he was back in the day. So the reason why you're going to run him, there are 2 main reasons. The first one is this insane active. Recover the entire hype of the team by 40% and action bar by 50%. Even if the life is reduced, that action bar 50% is just insane. Imagine you put a ball in front line and then you're there, you're already 50%. If you have a player like Milky Way, she's already at 80% before anything happens. You're just going to be acting before everyone. So that's really great. The second thing is the C space. Recover 15% of the life of all allies within the position, and then recover 30% of spirit for every ally. Meaning, if you got a goalkeeper and 4 defenders back there, you're going to be basically paying off your active in 1 tap and being able to use another active of someone else. So it's really great to just refill that spirit. Especially since sometimes you're going to be facing some units that can burn spirits. For example, a decent one of them is my Malcolm, who has that in his skills. But light-wise, you do not have any skills that can burn spirit. So you're not going to be able to play it at that level. Then this is something more technical. It is a season 2, but she is the best backline option when you're running a mono light. Why is that? It's because she has a brand new skill since she got EE'd to increase the action speed and reflex of light players within position. And reflex and action speed are the two best things I would say for a backline defender. If you stone her reflex-wise, who she can do very well since she's light, you can throw 3 reflex stones on that, meaning she's going to have insane reflex and just get out of there with a high speed. Plus, not only to that, she has the Way of Light, who's going to decrease damage from dark and thunder. The dark part can be completely ignored as you're already running light and no one cares about dark when running light. But the thunder part is a very good plus, as whenever a thunder player hits a light player, the light player takes 125% of the damage. Then she has a steel with a decent amount of reflex. It's going to recover action bar, who's not bad. It can actually go pretty high on the action bar front. But I would say it's maybe not the most valuable skill. That would be one of the last ones you fill in. And recover action bar and spirit of an attack. So if this one were to be maxed out, who is what I would say maxing out is more important. Because usually they shoot and you have the ball. I find it rare that we're in a position where we're stealing. Depending how you build and if you find you're in that situation a lot, you should switch it back to 5-5-3 and not 3-5-5. But that depends how it's going to look like when you play. So that's how you would set her up. Sadly, she is Season 2. So again, that is going to be a huge limitations because very few players can get her. And she's going to have a link with Sammy, making her very strong. And some decent Nemesis links, especially for PvE. So if you don't have her, what you're going to sadly want to run is Aaliyah. She is actually very strong, but she has a friendship link with Latios. She has an affection link with Scylla. It's pretty strong. She has some other light links. It's not a bad player, especially when you got a lot of light buffs. Her dribble can get out of hand really fast. The value here means nothing because it does not apply her buffs affected by the amount of life she has. She heals on hit, but she doesn't have any line advantage. So again, you really wanted at least a Chitose when you're running Monolight. There is Sky, who is the new passer with an EE. I would really say she is not worth it. Unless you want to use a passer as a stealer in front line, she has no other advantage anyway. Then in the back line, what some people have been doing, they've been throwing in a Raziel. I know it's not her ideal position, but that's just what people have been doing. So if you are interested in that, it is an option because she has a defensive tactic, decrease the reflex and action speed within the position for 2 minutes, Holy Predicament, increase attack power hype and Vice effect within the position, some more damage reduced, and she can buff herself. That active is completely useless. So for the buff perspective, and if you don't want to put her there, you can add her on midline as an extra totem. It really doesn't hurt. She was a special character that you could get last month. So I'm considering that when I'm talking about this, you've been playing for at least a month, so you already own her. So sadly, later on when people are going to be viewing this video, they're not going to have her. So this is going to be less interesting for them. Now in backline, what I'm going to say is pretty nice is the brand new Mariel EE, because she's going to cancel out the fact that Light has barely any survival skills in backline. Who is pretty sad when you compare to, for example, the Wormwind, where they have 30, 35 elemental resist, reflex this, boost that, decrease spirit that. It's very unfair, I would consider. I know Light has the highest amount of EEs, but when you compare it to some non-EE versions of certain characters, you start questioning what the value is. So why you want her is because she's going to decrease inflicted damage of the team. It's very nice. It's not that expensive. If you want a Virgil, you can just cast it. In case Virgil couldn't cast his active, it's completely fine. She's going to increase the hype, the critical rate, and the pass effect of allies within the position, making her a very good totem. So on that, she's completely fine. You don't care. And she's going to decrease the hype, the defense of the enemy within the position with a pass. So sadly, you got to realize she doesn't have a passer status. Meaning, unless she's on low life, she's not going to do this. or if you're using her manually. So this is a skill that in PvP is rarely going to be used when you're doing tournament mode. So it's to be taken with a grain of salt. I would say this is the skill that you're not going to select unless you're doing it manually. Like if you're running COT, you know you can reset skills with gold, so it costs barely anything. But I would say you're going to need to switch it in and out. And the last skill is recover action bar when damaged. Meaning, if you stick her on one of the sides, you're sure that after being shot once, you're going to be able to cast her active. What you need to realize is that majority of strikers are going to be positioned right here. So you're going to want to put her here, get her shot at. You only need to survive the very first shot. If you got a Chitoge here, Chitoge is going to be able to give her a speed boost. She already got an action bar boost, and she's going to cast that active. So Chitoge, again, is sadly one of the players that you really, really need in a backline, and she's Season 2. So I'm not going to mention more of Season 2, but this is the one that you will need whatever happens. Well, for example, I can point out this one, Demetres. If for some reason you own him, because he was just dropping like insanely. I think when he came out, anyone who even did a free draw ended up with him. Every single person I know owns him. So it's really up to you. If you don't own him, really do not feel bad. It's not that worth it. It's only good if on the other side you see a Balteon. That is the only value he really has. I'm again insisting, don't feel bad. Okay, because he can decrease the action speed and the pass effect of enemies within position, being his only truly valuable skill. He can recover hype of allies with a pass, not useful when you have a Virgil, not useful when you're running a Latios, not something you really care about. I mean, at that point, just throw a Black Ivy in there, it's fine. And he has a long range pass. So again, as I said, in Season 2, it's really Chitose. You're at least going to want to have her. If you don't have her, your backline is going to be pretty crumbly. So that's something you're going to want to work on. You throw a Leah, but it's still not going to be as strong. So on the light perspective, those are the most standard formations when you don't have legends. Now in light, there are 3 legends. I've ironically drawn 8 times in a row a light legend, but they keep being goddamn dupes. I swear to God, RNG hates me. And he wants me to have only light players, as I, again, own basically all of them. So, the first one is going to be Beth. You're gonna want to throw her center mid. She's extremely powerful. She has increased crit rate, reflex within the position with an attack. So if you decide to give her a Metatron's Will, it's just going to keep stacking. When she tries a penetration, she's going to increase attack power by 80% and recover action bar of all allies by 10%. So just that recovery is insane. Her active is also a recover action bar of the team. It can be activated after 5 minutes, so you cannot use it at start of game, which is very frustrating. But now the cooldown has been lowered to 8 minutes, so reusable a lot. And then that's just decrease incoming damage and attack power. It used to be when you hold the ball, so the stat got a little bit lowered. But I would say overall this is a very good buff. Again, if you have her, she just becomes your ace. There is no other option. In frontline, if you're running a Avonchi is a speed-based character based on his skills. The best known for him is going to be a Pterodox Blood, and he has a huge synergy with Milky Way. So again, Avonchi means you're forced to throw Milky Way in there, and you throw whatever thing you want here. It could be a passer and a sister. Milky Way's ideal position would be mid, but in my case, Balteon. Let's just say it's much better that he gets his ideal position than Milky Way. It's just a question of stats, value, and power. So again, and the last one, who I desperately want, because I'm starting to feel like RNG wants to give me light, but just not that one player, is Duke, who's the very first light 6-star. And he can be put on the left. So again, you're gonna notice that the light players, their perfect position is here, here, and here. It's just a frontline kind of deal. So he's been seriously buffed. He has a very high line position advantage. Reflex crit rate is huge. He's going to increase crit rate and critical damage by 40%, who basically just means you don't need to sacrifice stones on this. What's very popular is to throw a dark critical damage here and a dark critical in prime slot, meaning that he's going to be healing like a madman on crit. And here you're going to increase penetration and decrease incoming damage by 50%. Again, these last two skills are the most important. And his active is going to be for each target increase attack power and reflex by 30%. With co-op defense being a bigger problem every day for a lot of players, with each target makes a very big difference. Meaning, if you have a co-op defense of 3 targets, you're going to have a reflex buff of 90%. Meaning, we don't even care what your damage is anymore. You're just going to reflex your way through it. So that's why Duke is more of a power kind of player. He has the highest attack power, so it's very interesting. And he is overall a very good legendary. And he has some links with a bunch of players. So there are a few other players in the light team. Goalkeeper wise, the last position, it's really a question between these two players, Isilla and K. So the difference between the two of them is that K, if you can get him to defend the ball and fall right below that 60% bar, it's very nice. But he does decrease critical rate, so that's not that bad. But his one problem is he has no heal. So if they start hitting him multiple times, it can be very annoying. He does have a huge high boost. So again, he's also a possible ace. I'm not a fan of it, but it's an option. Or my favorite is Isilla, because she heals herself, who's very nice, and increases critical resistance by a higher amount than decreasing crit of a line who's going to be in the 200s. Her second passive is reduce the inflicted damage of all allies within the position, making it a line buff by 30%. And Holy Shield is going to decrease the incoming damage by 25% and increase critical resistance again when her hype is above 50%. And her active is the fact of using an active heal whenever she gets shot at, but she needs to activate it when she's holding the ball. So it can be activated on the first hit. So she is highly dependent on the fact you run a Virgil. If you don't have a Virgil, she will be completely useless. She needs to always stay above 50%. While a K, if you can stack his Great Wall passive 3 times, he's basically immortal. But the thing is, when the Great Wall runs out of time, it's over. So both of them are time-sensitive players. I would say on the middle to end game-wise, games will not last longer than 20 minutes. So that's why I'm going to say that Isilla is, in my eyes, the better of the two. But this is more a personal question. Well, K on the opposite is more of a rainbow goalkeeper, as we've seen a lot. On a striker front, I did not talk about Uriel. I do not consider she is worth it. Her main advantage is she's going to recover action bar of all players in the team with a shot. It's just not worth it. If you're going to recover something, just recover everyone's life. Her attack power is extremely weak. So again, if you're not running legendaries, the best striker is always going to be Hero in the light section, with increased attack power and hype, receiving pass effect and critical damage, and increased crit rate with a shot. So again, he's a bad stealer, but he's a very good shooter. So you just want to be sure that someone else is going to be taking damage, because he might be taken out very often. But he has a bunch of decent links and chains, so he's not that bad. Again, she's a special character, so your chances of owning her currently are high, but in a few weeks are going to be low, especially if you're a new player. If we're looking at Scorn, I know he's a season 1, but he's basically critical rate, action speed. He has no advantage for the line, and his stats are very low compared to any other player we've seen up till now. Especially since he's from frontline where there's a lot of crit reduce, he's not worth it. Then we have Carell. I didn't point him out because he was a season 2. He's actually pretty decent. When penetrating, he has a chance to paralyze. He has a form of super play, meaning he can attack more than once. And he's got increased crit rate, action speed, and decreased incoming damage. So in midline, if you for some reason don't have one of the previous players I pointed out, he is an option, but I wouldn't take him above any other player. And Sky, again, the last S2 of an EE. It was the E of the Dragon Reflux was changed for when being attacked, making it actually valuable. She's going to decrease the cooldown of her active skill and incoming damage by 50%, and even increase the reflex for 1 minute. We don't actually care for the 1 minute because it applies when attacked or when attacking, so it's just always on. There's no way it could be deactivated. So it's pretty good. And seriously, who's going to try to penetrate with a passer in front line? So you're completely fine with this. It's just always going to be active. Meaning she's going to be able to use her active a lot more than a lot of players. But to be honest, recover the action bar by 100, pass effect 40, and critical rate by 25 is fairly low. It might be every 5 minutes, but even then, it's still not really worth it. And it does cost spirit that she does not generate. Increased pass effect, well, this is the skill you would fill in last as well. That's just bad. And pass effect and action speed, that's actually more interesting because that 30% action speed is going to be a bigger buff. If I were to stone her, I would try to do some form of reflex build. Sadly, stone-wise, it ain't even that great. So like some green speed, some light reflex, or a Metatron's Will for a blue reflex there and another light reflex here. So that's how I would stone her. So I hope this will answer a few of the base questions people have had about light teams. And later on, I'm going to answer some more specific questions on light teams. Thank you very much.